Today is the day, ladies and gentlemen. The Nintendo Switch 2 is finally coming out at the midnight sale. Check your local store to make sure when it ends up opening up for pre-orders. Make sure that the store knows perfectly clear whether there's going to end up being a pre-order line and then a random person line, because a lot of stores, GameStop, Best Buy, and so on, are going to end up actually having the midnight sale for both people that have pre-ordered the system as well as people that are going into the store randomly. They're just going to end up having a little bit of extra stock. The reason you want to check is because if you show up in the lineup and there's no employees there because they open the store in like X amount of hours, then you're just gonna kind of stand in a random line and not realize if you're in the right one or not. Even with the Switch coming out today, I thought that there was a couple things that we should talk about, just kind of the last little tidbit of Nintendo news that I thought was interesting. We'll get into a little bit more details with regards to the pre-order stuff, but you guys might remember in my last video I was talking about how the Switch 2 already leaked. Well, funny enough, the Switch 2 did end up leaking. Basically, a bunch of store owners stole it, because let's be real, that's what they did. They stole it, they stole a copy for their friends, whatever, they're scumbags. Thankfully, Nintendo has a whole bunch of crazy anti-piracy stuff going on. For those of you that don't know, basically what ended up happening was when Tears of the Kingdom ended up releasing, it ended up getting leaked onto the Yuzu Switch emulator like a week before the game's official release. And that caught Nintendo's eye. They sued Yuzu into the ground, and the Switch 2 has had so much anti-piracy going on with it that is, I love it, because as much as there's the idea of game preservation through emulation and ease of use and ease of accessibility through emulation, I do think that it is entirely Nintendo's decision whether they want to end up fighting that or not. And one thing that they are doing is they're making their Switch 2 in a way they can brick the console if you try to modify it. Because in fact, that's what ended up happening. Somebody who had a leaked version of the Switch ended up trying to mod the Switch. The console got shut down by Nintendo, and then they ended up calling that person and charging them for trying to tamper with the software, which is kind of creepy because it's kind of Big Brother stuff, at least as far as America is concerned. But me being a little old Canadian here, I think, good, screw that scumbag trying to ruin it for the rest of us. That's kind of the big thing with all of this crazy, like, psychotic internet people where everyone always has to be first, you know? And that's not something that I have ever quite enjoyed about the rat race of the internet and YouTube. And especially now that I'm a father, it's like, I'll get to it when I get to it. But okay, let's go on to more pre-order stuff, and more particularly, I want to talk to you guys about how you can prepare for the midnight launch if you've never been to one. First of all, you should probably take a friend if you're downtown, or at the very least park nearby. Just be cautious, okay? Because people will try to steal it in some of the more dangerous parts of the city, depending on where you are. Even for me, myself, my local GameStop is very close by, and I'm being very overly paranoid because I'm Canadian, so we don't really have this issue that much. But I'm still going to drive there, just so that I have a vehicle rather than walking back home with it in a bag or something, just because you never know, right? You always gotta be safe rather than sorry. I've also seen some people's concerns online that they would potentially sell the Switch 2 that you already paid for and preserved or pre-ordered, but there is no way that that's going to end up happening, because technically you can go into the store without your receipt for your pre-order. You just have to have photo ID to be able to prove that it's you, and then they've got yours set up and ready. They also legally have to keep your pre-order for at the minimum of 48 hours. So even if you get there a day or two late, that's perfectly fine. It'll be there for you when you get there. If you're planning on getting there early, I would suggest that you end up bringing some type of an apparatus that allows you to sit down. You'll thank me later, it'll make a big difference. And then if you still have your Switch 1, bring it, because if you don't want to socialize with all the people in the lineup, then it's a great way to just kind of hide in the system and just play games or whatever. For me personally, I sold my Switch 1 the second the Switch 2 was announced. And funny enough, I actually got a call from EB Games the other day saying, oh, we're doing this deal right now where you can exchange your Switch 1 for store credit towards the Switch 2 for like $50 or something. I sold my Switch 1 for $300, thank you very much. I'll also say that a lot of the accessories over on GameStop or EB Games or whatever are a little bit overpriced. They're getting over taxation versus Best Buy and other general stores. Because when I noticed that the Switch 2 Pro controller was more expensive at EB Games, I went to Best Buy, I pre-ordered it for like, you know, the normal price. And on top of that, they're gonna ship it to my door as soon as it's available. So I don't even have to go there. As for getting Nintendo accessories, especially the SSD or the SD card, I would not recommend it. The Pro controller is something that I just personally want because I've heard really good things about the Switch 2 Pro controller. And as a content creator, I can make a video review talking about the controller and what have you. Like, it is insane to me that so many people have gotten third-party cases for their Switch 2 long before the system is even out, which means that those measurements could be slightly off. But you're not gonna need the SD card day one, okay? Mario Kart's gonna be the only game that you'll have. And so long as you have physical copies of Nintendo games, they're still squeezed onto that little cartridge. Everyone's trying to make this big stink about like the cartridge only having digital downloads. Nintendo games will officially be on the cartridge. It's just that they wanted to offer the ability to third-party developers as to whether or not they would try to squeeze their game on the cartridge or just have it as a digital download. But let's also not pretend that this is new to video games. We've been doing this since the Xbox 360. But if I can get back to the accessories, most of the Switch 1 variants will work. You can use your Switch 1 Joy-Cons, your Switch 1 Pro controllers to play Mario Kart and exclusive Switch 2 games. The only thing is they won't have the chat button, but most people will probably just use Discord or a phone call to play with their friends anyway. Not to mention the Switch 2 obviously still comes with its own set of Switch 2 Joy-Cons. I'm most of all just saying all of this as a word of caution because I'm seeing people get like way too hyped about this. Don't get me wrong. I'm probably the most excited person in the entire world for the Switch 2, and my wife even the other day was saying, I haven't been this excited for a video game. Not me, her, because she loves Mario Kart. It's a game that we both absolutely adored together with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But I am a normal adult male, and so I don't like, you know, lose sleep and get like dehydrated over the new console coming out. This isn't my first rodeo, so to speak. I'm by no means saying that as a weird flex or like talking down to anyone. I'm speaking from experience to just chill, just let it happen. You know, people with their countdown timers, you know, counting down the days, counting down the hours. I didn't bother with any of that stuff because I'm so busy and just, you know, talking and hanging out with friends and dealing with my baby and hanging with my wife and just living life to the fullest that I possibly can, so that you know, this month went by like super quick for me. I think that the last time that I really lost sleep and got like way too excited about a game was when Fable 1 came out, just because Peter Molyneux was basically hyping this game up to be like the best game ever. And it ended up being a great game when it came out, but it was in no way any of the stuff that he said. Like, he kind of over exaggerated it. And since then, I've known how to kind of curb my expectations to be more realistic. You know, the same thing happened when Cyberpunk came out. People were psychotic and expecting you to basically be living in this world, like buying a house and paying taxes and making friends with NPCs, when it's like, bro, it's a video game. There is no way in hell that it has all of that. Oh my God, I am getting so off topic here. Okay, let's dial it back and talk about one of the most important things, which is the pre-order lines. So I can confirm that Best Buy, at least here in Canada, is going to have some in-store stock for the Switch 2, meaning that there's gonna be a lineup of people that pre-ordered the system. Their copy is completely secure. But then there's gonna be a second lineup of people that are expecting to go in and grab some of that limited stock. What concerns me is I don't think there's going to be any Best Buy employee that is going to regulate that, meaning that most people that are waiting are going to just be in one long clump of a line, and it's gonna mess things up when the store opens, and a lot of people will have wasted their time. EB Games, or GameStop, on the other hand, thankfully has a more elegant solution where they are just not having a midnight release for in-store stock. They're just going to let people with pre-orders go in line tonight and pick up their console. And then the following day, on June 5th, is when they will have very, very limited in-store stock. But one thing that I have learned is very problematic with EB Games Is there stupid, hey, do you want to exchange all of this crap for the Switch 2? I guarantee you there will be one of those freaks in your lineup that has like 50 different games that they're trying to exchange for this system. Despite the fact that they could make so much more money to pay for the console by just selling those games independently, instead, no, let's exchange it and waste everyone else's time behind me because the employee has to manually punch in every single one of those stupid games. The point I'm getting at is I have rigorously been calling my EB Games to try and confirm whether or not they're gonna have two separate lines. One for people that have pre-ordered the console and fully paid for it, and one for people that are still going to pay for it. They have not been able to give me an answer. I am going to try and confirm that with them today. It pays to know because when you're sitting there in line and there's no employee in sight, at the very least, you can tell other people this is how it's going to go down. Otherwise, get there early. Maybe like 2 hours tops. That's a little ridiculous. 1 hour, you should still be fine, but it's kind of a luck of the draw who gets in front of you first. Or, you know, you could just show up to the store the next day anytime that you want to pick up your pre-order. But anyways, this will finally be the last video where we talk about all of this Switch 2 debacle, because while you may have just tuned into this singular video, I've actually been making quite a few of these videos, which is most of all in due to the fact that I'm hyped as hell for the system, but also just because I want to be kind of the word of reason when it comes to these types of things, because there's a lot, and I mean a lot of clickbait and rage bait out there in regards to the Switch 2. So much misinformation, so many blatant lies about the console. And then on top of it, you got like these bigger content creators saying, oh, this console is a scam, when I guarantee you they weren't going to buy the console in the first place. They're not their demographic, they're not the audience. A freak like me who is a Nintendo fan for life, yeah, I'll buy the Switch. I'll name my second child Switch 2. With all of that said, thank you all for watching and good luck. Just be safe, be kind to one another, and enjoy the console. Just take it easy and take it at your own pace. Don't worry about rushing through the game immediately or anything like that. You know, I'm going to end up playing the Switch 2 hopefully later tonight. It depends how long the day one patch is for the console that's going to basically unbrick it. Because for those of you that didn't check out my last video, for the people that did steal the Switch 2, it can't run any games until it has the day one patch, which is supposed to be June 4th or June 5th. So hopefully we'll get that patch on time and be able to access our consoles immediately. Oh, and last thing just before you guys go, there's always been a Nintendo Direct in June. There might not be this year because Nintendo is going to be at Summer Games Fest, which is going to end up being June 6th. So we've got one day to play the Switch and just go crazy. And then we've got Summer Games Fest, Future Games Fest, PC Game Showcase, and all of this crazy events going on over this following week, which should end up having some great reveals. I mean, I'd be streaming all of them or stream reacting to all of them, and trying to squeeze in as much Switch time as I can amongst not sleeping.